as a child. Greetings, Slimesters, and welcome to another episode of Nightmares as a Child, a minisode series where I share with you some of the most terrifying, nightmare-fueled moments extracted from the dark corners of 90s Nick history. I'm your bone-chilling host, Brett, and today we have a tale that makes one ask themselves, what are nightmares made out of? Are they nothing more than negative thoughts manifesting in our subconscious? Or are they re-triggered trauma with a dash of chaos? That's what we'll find out with my particular story involving one of my encounters as a child, featuring the abnormal. Before I go full force into the story, as frightening as the actual appearance of the abnormal is, I actually enjoyed his look as much as I enjoyed the pool zombie from Dead Man's Float. To me, this is the scariest Doug episode ever, right alongside Doug's Halloween Adventure, just because of how creepy that green ghoul was that we saw in Bloodstone Manor. And I really wish Doug did more horror-themed episodes, or at least some more Halloween-themed ones, because I really like seeing this angle from, a seemingly perfect suburban lifestyle turned upside down by something a little bit more psychological, something a little more sinister, for lack of a better word. So if you ever have any ideas of what you would imagine a more spooky, more horror-themed Doug episode to be, let me know at splatattack2021@gmail.com. And maybe we'll feature it on a future Create Your Own episode, which I have in store for future seasons of this podcast. I want to tell you a dream that I had as a kid. I watched The Abnormal. I like to call it The Abnormal, even though it's properly named Doug's Nightmare on Jumbo Street, because let's face it, it's really more about the character than it is about Doug overcoming his fears of watching this movie that supposedly scared him to death. From the get-go, that music that goes like dun 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 dun, that already scared me, and we weren't even 3 seconds into the episode as a little 5-year-old, but I couldn't look away because of the movie poster that they showed in the intro, where the guy's running away from this really jagged, spiky shadow creature that we couldn't tell who it was. And as I continued to look closer, hiding behind underneath my little blanket for security, in the darkness of my room on a Saturday night before SNCC, all I remember was, don't go in there, you're gonna get eaten by the abnormal. And it was pretty shocking to see how the shadow would just randomly pop up in different situations and just terrorize people, and there'd be like red strobing lights. And it made me thinking, Doug mentioned he was a shapeshifter. What if it's the same creature from the Tale of the Dark music, the cellar door demon that never comes out of that door except when it manifests itself as your worst fears, like the skeleton carny or the life-size doll? Maybe there's a connection there. Maybe there's a shared universe where this creature likes to just dwell in certain places to feed on people's fears. Heck, I mean, if you saw the recent season of Stranger Things, it could be connected to Vecna, but I'll let you conspiracy theorists figure that one out for yourself. Anyways, as I was watching this episode, I literally felt like Doug there in the moment. I was just closing my eyes. I didn't want to see what would happen or what gruesome ways the abnormal creature would devour its victims or consume their brains or even just to overtake their bodies. And it just left me unsettled. In fact, I had to walk away from the episode for a little bit and come back. And I remember the little kids, the little fans who were watching it, they really enjoyed watching it. And I felt like them too, because they were just so excited to see over and over and over again, because they probably love horror monsters as much as I did growing up. And it just made me think of how this episode has become such a cherished memory of mine, even though I was terrified of it as a kid. So, like Doug, and very similar to Zebo too from Are You Afraid of the Dark, a lot of the fear comes from your imagination. Like, what could it be that I would not want to see or encounter versus what it actually is based on the director's vision. And the night after I watched this, I had a nightmare where I essentially felt like I was in Doug's situation. It was a nightmare that was very vivid, where I felt like I was in another reality that was real and fully alive. Like, I could touch things and everything. And I was in this really weird, twisted Toontown with, like, heads on the buildings, just going up and down, up and down. I think it came from the actual episode itself, but it seemed more like a twisted version of Roger Rabbit's Toontown, more so than the Doug interpretation of Bluffington Downtown. And I just remember being like lost, stuck in an intersection, not really knowing why I'm there, where I'm going, or why I'm in the middle of an intersection of all places, instead of like in a movie theater or somewhere safe and comfortable. But I looked up, and sure enough, I saw the evil spidery traffic light that I saw in the episode of Doug, and it was just looking down at me after it turned all of its lights from like the normal, green, yellow, red, all to red, and it began to like strangle me with the cords. It took a couple of the cords off that was suspending it, and just like. And it was frightening. I hate having dreams where I'm like choking or strangling and I can't breathe, because it really just sucks me into like a dark place of anxiety. But luckily I had enough like mental control to just remove that thing off of my neck, and I just began running away. And I kept running and I kept running, and I ended up somehow at my house that I lived in at the time. Just going inside and trying to find a place to hide. I didn't know where to go because I can feel the shadow looming over me constantly. And I had to be clever so that he couldn't find me. Of course, I didn't have much imagination as a 5-year-old, in the sense that I couldn't think fast on my feet. I could just run fast. So I hid under the bed like any typical young child, hoping that it wouldn't find me. And I found myself just quivering, trying to keep it together best I could. And I saw the abnormal's hulking foot, and I just kept thinking to myself, don't say anything, don't breathe, don't do anything until he leaves this room so I'm safe. And then, of course, he looks around. I try to be quiet. Turns away, and then he walks out, and I felt like I was safe for a moment, like the dream was over. I woke up and I just happened to be under my bed. But what happened next was really, really unusual, really unnerving. So for those who don't know, I had a dog named Taylor at the time, and she was a German Shepherd, very, very lovely dog, rest in peace. She had a habit of like walking around the house whenever her like joints were achy. And so I thought what I initially encountered was her when I got out from under the bed. But before I left the bedroom, because she walked into my bedroom and I just pet her, and then I was about to leave, she turned around and said, "Where do you think you're going?" In a very atypical monster style voice. I turned around real quick, still had my hand on the doorknob, and before I knew it, the Taylor, or who I thought was Taylor, stood up on her hind legs and arched out her like front legs like this, and her eyes began to glow like gold, like just like a lighthouse in each eye. And I was freaked out because I didn't know what was going on now. It was just wild. It reminded me of that moment where Doug encountered Porkchop, and he had that Jack Nicholson voice like he did in The Shining. And that's how you knew you were stuck in the dream, because things weren't what they initially seemed. So I just freaked out. I said, "You're not Taylor!" And the weird dog demon creature, I'll call it that, said, "What are you talking about? Come pet me some more." And I just did not want to be involved at all, obviously. So I ran back downstairs, and the weird demon dog kept chasing me. I quickly hid underneath, well, not underneath. I quickly hid behind this old brown sofa that was up against a window in the living room. And I thought that if I was there, that he wouldn't bother to look for me. Also because it was so tight that I can just barely fit without having any extra room for my tummy to, expand and contract when I was breathing. So it felt like one of those instances where soldiers were hiding from, enemies during a war, and they had to be absolutely still while they were raiding the house. For a while, again, I thought I could escape this weird demon dog, but I think it knew it was clever enough to wait until I came out when the coast was clear, because that's when it seemed to really fully engage its energy towards me. And when I poked my head out from under the brown couch behind it, the gap between it and the window, of course I saw it, circling around in the living room and then locking its golden gaze on me, and then it just immediately pounced on me without a second thought and pushed me out the back window into our backyard. Holy hell, that was a ride. I felt like I was going to die in that moment. That was one of the very few moments where I thought I was alive in a dream, but I was going to die. But luckily, as you can still see, I'm here. That did not happen, and that did not, send me to the hospital or anything. I pushed the demon dog off of me, like just to my side. I got up, tried to run away again, and it tried to chase me. And then I remember grabbing this rock, this like big heavy rock that was half sunken into our yard, and just hurling it onto the dog, and it like definitely knocked it out. And then I went to go over to see it, and while it was unconscious, and this is really strange. I just remember like seeing a zipper on its back and being like, oh, what does this do? Like thinking I was unzipping a pair of pants. And of course, when I did that and looked down on the yard with the shards of glass surrounding me, I saw a bunch of toy poodles jump out one by one. Little pink toy poodles. I'm pretty sure I got that from the episode as well, but again, sunk into my subconscious. So, yeah. What I don't even know how to make of that still. Like, what do you do with that? I guess it's just one of those instances where, yeah, if you face your fear, suddenly something you're terrified of is diminished in power. Thankfully, that did remind me of the instance where I also fought the renegade virus in my nightmares, because I also used that zipper trick to make him, embarrassed, exposing his heart-shaped underwear, boxers, and everyone laughing at him. But this time it was just a solo encounter between me and the demon dog. Which I'm pretty sure was my manifestation of the abnormal. So I remember waking up, the next day, being in a bit of a daze. I was a little cautious that I woken up in another dream that I had to either fight or run away from the abnormal, but nope. It was Sunday morning. I was in my bed, all cozied up with my blankets. And for a while, I forgot about that episode. And then about, say, like 6 months later, when I caught it on TV again, during the afternoon when I got home from school, I ended up not, like, closing my eyes. I sat through the whole thing. I wanted to be strong like Doug. I didn't rope my hands to the arm rests. Luckily, I didn't need to do that. I was surprised by what the abnormal turned out to be. It was just this freaky looking red monster that was semi-aquatic with like the weird fins and gills and webbing under its armpits, and it just made me think, oh, This kind of looks like this weird volcano-y Mighty Max toy that I had at the time. And I thought it was more cool than scary, but I guess that just goes to show you how imaginations can run wild if left unchecked. Certainly more so with me, because it seems to be a lot more vivid and sensory than like someone who isn't artistically inclined. Maybe I could be wrong, but that's my personal perception, that you know, my emotions and my dreams and all that stuff are much more heightened as a result of my proclivity for creativity. So if there's any takeaway from that nightmare that I had as a child, it's that face your fear. I know it's tempting to run away, but if you do, it'll just keep chasing you. You can't really get away. It's just better to face things head on and just see the result, because 9 times out of 10, as far as I know, they aren't deadly consequences when you stand up to things that you're afraid of. And that's very reassuring. That's empowering. And I hope that anyone who's ever been scared of anything they saw on Nickelodeon as a child can use this experience that I'm sharing with you as a bit of hope or reassurance that, you know, yeah, things are scary in life, but you can handle them. You're stronger than you think you are. I certainly didn't think I could tackle a dog and turn it into a bunch of toy poodles, but I did, because I just didn't want it to haunt me anymore. I didn't want it to like kill me, so I had to fight back. And I know you guys can do too if you ever encounter something like this in your nightmares. So with that being said, that is my last nightmares as a child for season 3 of Splat Attack. Whether we choose to continue this minisode series for season 4 and beyond, it is a little bit unclear right now, but I would love to hear some of your suggestions, please. If you have childhood nightmares, definitely submit them via splatattack2021@gmail.com, and even go one step further. Send either a voice recording or a video of yourself retelling your nightmares that are related to either 90s Nick or 90s nostalgia. I haven't had as much participation as I would have liked, but I'm always trying to encourage you guys to get more involved. This show is not about me. It's not about Alex. It's not even about Sam. It's about our guests. It's about the experiences they have to share, and it's about our listeners who keep this community thriving. So if you value what we do and you want to be a part of the action as we continue to grow, just towards preserving our slime-filled past together, send us some nightmares and join in on the fun with us. All right, guys. Splat you later with another terrifying tale, if I choose to do it for season 4. The end, or is it?
Watch out! The abnormal's coming! Mom! Dad! Where are you? Look! Where is everybody?
You've got to be putting me on.
It's you! You're the abnormal!